I waited to make this video for two reasons. The first one, now that it's the first day of the World Cup, Qatar versus Ecuador kicks off in a few hours, I know every player that's injured or in great form, and that's going to help me make a decision on which teams are going to go farther into the tournament. And the second reason is the fact that, honestly, I wasn't even sure if I was going to make another one of these kind of videos. Back in 2018, I actually made a prediction video, and that was the most hateful comment section and so many xenophobic comments because I'm an American making predictions on football, and that's just not allowed on the internet. And in fact, if you look at the left side of this bracket, I did this a month before the World Cup happened, so I had to predict the group stage and then the knockouts. That's pretty dang good. We had France winning it, although I did have France and Croatia playing in the first round. I did get that right. They just ended up playing in the finals. Now, the right side of the bracket, I admit, was pretty bad. Spain versus Russia, I got correct. Colombia versus England, I got correct. But I did have Russia losing to Spain. I did get England right going against Colombia. They won on penalties. Today's video is not going to be boring. It's not going to be all of the favorites moving on to the next round. There are going to be some underdog victories in my prediction, and if that's going to upset you, then I urge you to please click off this video and don't just leave a hateful comment because I didn't choose your favorite country to move through or I didn't choose the favorite to move through, because that is just boring. But for the rest of you guys, make sure to drop a like on the video if you support the content, and if this does get received well, I'll continue to make some World Cup content throughout the next month while the tournament is taking place. But let's go ahead and get started because we've got our World Cup prediction bracket pulled up right now, and Group A is so straightforward. Well, at least if you had asked me a couple months ago, it would have been super straightforward because I would have had Netherlands, then Senegal, then Ecuador, then Qatar. That's how it would have gone for me. But now we've got Sadio Mane, who is injured, and we've got a lot of speculation on Qatar getting a little bit of help from the referees. But obviously, that's just speculation. That might be overblown because of, obviously, the FIFA corruption of the last decade. It might not happen, but we have seen it happen. In 2002, just watch South Korea versus Italy, and you'll know what I'm talking about. But in this group, it is still going to be Netherlands topping it. I think they're one of the strongest teams in the tournament. The only thing about Netherlands that really throws me off is the fact that I'm not sure if Memphis Depay is going to be starting because there's been rumors that he's unfit right now. And I'm not sure the details on that, but I actually had him as my Golden Boot winner, and now I'm not even sure he's going to be starting, which really throws me off, but I think we can all agree Netherlands are the strongest team in this group. And here is where I might throw some of you guys off. I'm going to go with Ecuador at number 2. Now, Senegal is definitely the strongest African nation going into this tournament, and I do expect a lot of the African nations to maybe struggle because they did get some tough groups. And in this one, Senegal absolutely has a chance to get out, but I think Ecuador might be a little bit underrated. Now, this is risky because if Ecuador end up losing in the first match against Qatar, which could be one of the toughest games of the group for them, because playing against the host country in the first match is always difficult. It doesn't matter who's playing in that match. So if Ecuador are able to win against Qatar in game 1, I think that they're going to be able to sneak out of this group, and that's why I have them at number 2. Moving on to Group B, which is overall the highest ranked group in the entire World Cup. Now, you can argue that there are tougher groups. In fact, I think if USA was placed in the spot where Japan or Costa Rica are, that would be a tougher group for sure. But on average, the ranking of this group is 15, which is substantially higher than any other group because it is pretty well balanced between these three teams, Iran, USA, and Wales. But there is a front runner here, and that is England. And I was even talking to a couple of my England friends who are my teammates on my football team, and they were like, I don't even want us to win. I hate Gareth Southgate. And I just don't think that is the mentality you guys need to go into this World Cup with. It's a World Cup. You guys have to back your manager and your country no matter what. And if he does underperform, well then get him out of there. I'm not too happy with what Greg Berhalter Berhalter has done for USA, because I think he's leaving out our best striker in Jordan Pefok. He's been playing pretty well for Union Berlin. I think he's in pretty good form, and I think his big body really fits the system of USA, and I just don't think the other strikers like Jesus Ferreira or Jordan Morris are nearly as good. So I'm not a huge fan of USA either, and my brain is actually telling me that Iran is probably going to get second. I really rate Taremi, the striker from Iran. I think he's one of the most informed players going into this World Cup, but my heart just will not allow me to put Iran in second. So I'm going to put them in third. I'm going to put USA in second, and it's going to come down to that game against Wales in the first match on November 21st, which is my birthday. So drop a like because it's my birthday tomorrow. And that is going to be my prediction for Group B. And let's go ahead and see what are the most popular predictions for this group. I think, so I actually have Iran and Wales flip-flopped from the most popular, and then in Group A, I have Senegal and Ecuador flip-flopped. So I'm close on the most popular predictions, but I do have a couple of different choices here. Most people are putting Wales to finish third, and I just don't think you can completely rule out Iran here. I think they're going to put up a good fight. They were the first team to qualify from Asia, other than Qatar, obviously, and they did it with ease. So I think they're going to go ahead and finish in third. They might finish second. My brain says second. My heart's not going to allow that. Let's move on to Group C before I dig myself into a hole there. So Group C is it's a tough one because we've got Argentina, who are the heavy favorites, but then we've got two very evenly matched teams between Mexico and Poland. And if you ask any Mexican fan, they are saying that they don't agree with the manager's decisions either. So they've brought a lot of the older players. They haven't really given a lot of the youngsters a chance, but they do have some star power there with Herving Lozano. So it's not a terrible team. Raul Jimenez might be back, although he has been hurt for the better part of the last couple of years. He is predicted to be back in the lineup for this tournament, but you just can't predict what kind of form he's going to be in with how much he's been injured and not playing for Wolves. So it's a tough one for Mexico. They haven't been performing well in CONCACAF overall. They've lost to USA 3 times in a row. They finished below Canada in the qualifiers. So they haven't been in great form, but they haven't been in the worst form. They still did enough to qualify. They actually finished above USA after that last match day in the qualifiers. They're not a walkover team, and they always do overperform in the World Cup. I think we're all expecting Guillermo Ochoa to go off like a prime Casillas or prime Buffon or the mixture of the two during the World Cup, because that's just what he does. He is one of the best World Cup goalkeepers of all time. And for that reason, I'm going to put Mexico in second. I think Argentina are going to win this group. I would love to see a Messi masterclass in this World Cup. And I think that everybody's going to be rooting for their own country, but 1% of them does want to see Messi lifting that trophy at the end of this tournament. So Argentina, I think, are getting out of this group. I think they might be a little bit overrated though going in, because there's so many people that have them winning this tournament, and I think there's a lot of stronger teams in this tournament, and we'll get to those soon. So then we've got to decide third and fourth, which doesn't really matter. It's not like they get pushed to the Europa World Cup. So I'm going to throw Poland at third and Saudi Arabia in fourth, although Saudi Arabia could surprise some people. Al Dassari is a great player, but I just don't think that Saudi Arabia has the defensive ability to stop the likes of Lionel Messi, Lautaro Martinez, who, if I'm not going to choose Memphis Depay to have Golden Boot, I might choose Lautaro Martinez too. And then obviously Herving Lozano is a great player, Robert Lewandowski. I just don't think Saudi Arabia is going to be holding up too well. They might be a team that concedes a lot of goals in this World Cup. Group D has a pretty big drop-off in quality between the top two and the bottom two, and ignore Tunisia and Australia. I accidentally moved them already. I can't move them back. I don't know why. But it's a pretty big drop-off in talent between France and Denmark, between Tunisia and Australia. So I think that 99% of people are going to have France, Denmark, Tunisia, Australia in that order. For me, I've got to go with something pretty similar, because I think Australia, as much as I love the Socceroos, as much as I love Jared HD, one of the greatest people I've ever met, I don't see them getting out of this group. They barely scraped out of the Asian qualifiers. Then they barely scraped out of the playoffs. And yes, they have done just enough to get here. You could say they might scrape out of this group. I don't see it happening. I think that they are the weakest team in this tournament. And although there are some teams that you might be able to compare to them, like Qatar or whatever, they are not a very good nation, and I don't see them getting out of a group with France and Denmark in it. In fact, I don't even see them beating Tunisia, and I see Tunisia finishing above them. Now, France is the World Cup winner, and the World Cup winner normally gets knocked out of the group stage in the next World Cup. It's been a curse that has lasted the better part of 2 decades now. In 2006, Italy won the World Cup, and then they got knocked out in 2010 out of a much easier group than this one, in my opinion. Then Spain won that World Cup and got knocked out in 2014 out of what was probably a tougher group, but they got knocked out by Costa Rica of all teams. That was the team that was supposed to finish in 4th in that group. Then Germany won that World Cup and got knocked out of their group in 2018. France won the 2018 World Cup, and if that pattern continues, Tunisia might be sneaking out of this group, but for me, I have them finishing second. And I think that France could actually play their B team and still move pretty far in this tournament. I think France's B team is better than probably 75% of the team's A teams in this tournament. But Denmark is a team that they have not been able to beat. They got thrown in the same group in Nations League as Denmark, and they've played them a few times in the last couple of years, and France has not finished on top on any of them. So Denmark's kind of been their kryptonite, and I don't see any reason that can change, because Denmark really brings the vibes that only a few countries can bring, where all of their players and all of their fans and all of their citizens get behind them and get behind their teammates. It is all for one for all kind of team, which you kind of see with Japan and South Korea and Argentina in a way. But Denmark has that same vibe, and I think that's going to carry them pretty far in this tournament, similar to how it carried them in the Euros of 2020, or I guess 2021. Group E is where things get a little bit tough for me, because I am the least confident about this group than any other group. Now, if you look at the popular predictions, I would probably guess that it's Germany, Spain, Japan, Costa Rica, but I think Japan is actually a pretty strong team. They did crush the USA in a friendly, so I have some personal bias there. I saw how good they were against my nation, and I think that they have a really, really strong defense, and they've got some young players moving forward that can do some damage. So they could knock off either Germany or Spain, and Germany versus Spain is going to be one of the closest matches of the tournament. I mean, I cannot decide who is going to win against Spain or Germany. Both teams kind of in a similar boat, where they haven't been in the perfect form over the last few years. They have certain positions they haven't figured out. Germany don't know who they're going to play at the 9. They have been speculating about a false 9 Thomas Muller. I don't know how that'll work out, or even if they do it, but it is a really tough group to predict, because Costa Rica is not a team that you can just walk over. They got out of the CONCACAF qualifiers, and although it's not as difficult as the South American qualifiers or the European qualifiers, going away to Panama or El Salvador and playing in the mud and the tall grass it's a battle. It's not an easy away game. And they've been through that, as has all of the CONCACAF teams. They are not a team that's just going to get stepped on and get walked over. They're going to put up a fight. So they could steal points from any of these guys, and that could sneak Japan through. But for me, I'm going to have to throw Germany at number 1. I think they're starting to get their stuff together, although they had a shaky, better half of the last decade. Ever since they won the World Cup, they had a huge generation change between Lahm and Schweinsteiger retiring, and Neuer's coming towards the end of his career now, although I think he's the greatest goalkeeper of all time. He's definitely not the same Manuel Neuer that we saw a few years ago, but I still do have Germany finishing top this group above Spain. Spain's got a very young midfield, a very promising midfield, and they're starting to cycle through their defense. They didn't take Sergio Ramos. Gerard Piqué has retired. David De Gea did not get selected for this World Cup. It's a new generation of Spain, and I think they're going to do enough to get out of this group, but it's not going to be nearly as strong as the Spain team that we saw 10 years ago. So I'm going to have them in second. Japan is going to go in third, because I do rate them, and I think that they could sneak out of this group, similar similar to how Ecuador can sneak out of Group A. But for me, I've got to go Germany, Spain. And I know that might be a little bit too boring, but that is what I genuinely believe. Now, if you haven't seen enough of a spicy group yet, I'll give it to you in Group F, because I think this is going to be the group of chaos. I really rate Canada. Of all of the CONCACAF teams, despite the fact that the USA, they won the Gold Cup, they won the Nations League in CONCACAF, they have been the strongest team in those tournaments. In World Cup qualifiers, that was not the case. It was all Canada all the time. Even Canada playing in USA, although a lot of them play domestically in MLS, so they might be used to it, they dominated a lot of the games. So they ended up winning CONCACAF, finishing first, qualifying for the World Cup first out of CONCACAF, and I don't think that should be overlooked. Sure, we had a little bit of a scare as Alphonso Davies did get hurt a few weeks ago, but he's fine. The reports say he's going to be starting in the first match, and Jonathan David is one of the most informed strikers in the French league. He's been putting away goals for a couple of years now. Absolutely great striker. And Kyle Loren up there is no joke either. So they could go with two strikers, and they have done before. Tejon Buchanan on the right wing is a great right winger, and he could be the James Rodriguez of this World Cup. Now, their downfall does come defensively, because they don't play Alphonso Davies as a left back. They play him as a left wing, and their defense is a little bit shaky. John Stone is decent, but he is clunky, and their goalkeeper, Borjan, can make mistakes. So they definitely have to tighten that up if they want to beat a team like Belgium or Croatia, but I think they're going to do it, and I think they're going to finish in second in this group. Belgium, is their golden generation over? De Bruyne, Hazard, are they in their prime? Well, De Bruyne, I would say so. He's been probably the best midfielder in the world in the last decade. He's been spectacular. Eden Hazard, on the other hand, ever since his transfer from Chelsea to Real Madrid, has never been the same. And Lukaku didn't do too well in EPL last year, although for Inter Milan, he does seem kind of like a different animal. We'll see how those two turn up. But defensively, they don't have Vincent Kompany, and they haven't had for years. A lot of their defenders are getting old, and their fullbacks aren't that strong. Sure, they have Thibaut Courtois in goal, but they're going to need a Golden Glove performance from him like Real Madrid got in the Champions League if they want to win this World Cup. I have them finishing first, but I don't see them going too much farther than the knockout stage round of 16, and we'll get to that soon. Next, we have Morocco and Croatia, and that is probably the biggest shock out of all of it. Croatia getting knocked out in the group stage. They went to the finals of the 2018 World Cup, and that is not overlooked. I just think that this is going to be one of those things where the better team might not get out of the group. It sometimes happens, and I think Canada is going to be the team to do that. But I think Morocco is actually going to put up a little bit of numbers on Croatia. I think Morocco might be helping Canada out, because Morocco has Hakimi, it has Ziyech. It's not a terrible team. They've got Bono, who actually was born in Canada but plays for Morocco, which is kind of a weird dynamic in that group, because he's going to be playing against his technically home country, but it's not a bad team, and I think Morocco could steal some points against Croatia. So it's not a far-fetched scenario in which Morocco steals points from Croatia and then Canada gets an upset underdog win against Croatia, and all of a sudden Croatia is not going to the knockout stage, and I think that's kind of how it's going to go down. Next up, we've got Group G, and Group G is a tough group to decide number 2, but I have Brazil at number 1, and I don't think there's any question about it. I think Brazil are star-studded. They have everything they need to win this World Cup. They've got a stellar defense with a great mixture of informed players like Marquinhos and very, very good veterans like Thiago Silva, who, even if he's not on the pitch, is going to have a big impact on how they play defensively. Then, on top of that, they've got two of the greatest goalkeepers in the world, in Alisson and Ederson, and I believe I don't even know who they're going to choose. I think they normally go with Alisson, although in distribution, Ederson is bar none. So it is really a great country. They've got Neymar Jr., who's got a lot to prove, because ever since his transfer to PSG, they still haven't won Champions League, and they lost to Argentina in Copa America final. So I think that they've got a lot to prove, this generation of Brazil, and they are due for a World Cup. They've won 5 of them. I think they're going to make it 6, maybe. We'll see what I predict predict moving down the line. Now, who finishes in second? Is it going to be Serbia, Switzerland, or Cameroon? Now, Cameroon is not a team I know a ton about. In fact, I didn't watch a ton of the African qualifiers. I just couldn't find the feed to watch many of them. But looking at their score lines, they didn't seem like they were one of the strongest teams to qualify from the AFCON. So I don't see them getting out of this group, and I think Serbia is in really, really good form. They ended up beating Portugal, although it was controversial. I know Ronaldo wasn't happy about it. They did beat Portugal in the qualifiers, and they've been putting up great numbers in friendly matches. I think their only falter was a 3-0 loss to Denmark a few months ago, which definitely hurt a little bit of their momentum, but they got it right back. They seem very strong. They've got a lot of strike force in Luka Jovic, Alexander Mitrovic, Vlahovic. They've got Sergej Milinkovic-Savic in the midfield. It's not a bad team. I have them finishing second. Now, here's the thing. Brazil, Serbia, and Switzerland were all in the same group in 2018. The only difference between this group and the group they had in 2018 was that instead of Cameroon, it was, I can't even remember, was it Ghana? But I don't know. They had a different fourth team other than Cameroon, but they had the same three teams here, and Switzerland actually bested Serbia in that World Cup. Serbia, I think, are going to come back for revenge and knock them out this time. Now, Group H, this is a fun group, and I think this might be one of the most entertaining groups of the World Cup because I think any of these teams could go out. Now, Ghana is the lowest ranked country going into this World Cup. They have the lowest FIFA ranking, but they have some good players. Kudus has been tearing it up for Ajax. Thomas Partey in the midfield has been doing really well for Arsenal. So they've got a couple really good players. If they can fill in those gaps, they could do some damage. But Uruguay and Portugal are some very, very strong teams. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo has obviously been out of form for Manchester United. He hasn't been doing great. But with Portugal, it's a different environment. He could come back stronger, and I think he might have a little bit left in his tank to give it his all, to go out with a bang and win a World Cup with Portugal. So I have them getting out of this group, but I don't have them winning it. I think Uruguay are going to win it. They finished third very comfortably in the CONMEBOL qualifiers from South America. Obviously, it was Brazil and Argentina who both went undefeated in qualifiers, despite the fact that one of their games got abandoned in the 5th minute due to COVID regulations, which was an absolute mess. I don't know if you guys looked into that, but it was the craziest thing that never got huge media traction. But I just don't think it's going to be enough to best Portugal or Uruguay. And Ghana, I just don't see getting out of a tough Group H. So that's going to be it for the group stages for me. Let me know what you guys would change without calling me a stupid yank who knows nothing about football in the comments down below. The video is getting a little bit long, so if you guys want a part 2 where I do the knockout stage prediction, if we hit 200 likes on this video, I will do the knockout stage video for you guys as well. So don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new for more FIFA 23 and World Cup content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.